Bonjour, je m'appelle Candice Behrendt. My dad is Pete and his mom is Isabel Ducharme and her mom was Josie Lily. And I'm Métis from southwestern Manitoba, from the Turtle Mountain area of de Lorraine. And I'm also French-Canadian from St. Boniface. So, Michif French is a dialect of Michif, which is the language of the Métis people. There are many dialects of Michif, and Michif French is the dialect that is spoken primarily around the area of what is today called St. Laurent, but also throughout southern Manitoba and somewhat in southeastern Saskatchewan.
Hello, my name is Arlene Chapman. My mom and dad were Laurent Flamand and Emily Flamand. So my father, he spoke French at home all the time. It was Michif French. My mom was English, but she learned to speak French from him and his parents, Isabelle and Alexander Flamand. They had their children, my siblings. There were 13 children in the family. They used to speak French at home, but when we went to school, we spoke English. Came home, mom and dad would speak French to us, and we would respond in English, which did not please my dad. We were taught by nuns, and they had French books, and they would make us learn French. But when inspector would come, because he would do a surprise visit, he would come to the school, and we would have to all hide the French books. The French that we learned at school was more of a Montreal French, but at home, because it was Michif, a mixture of Cree and French, there was a lot of words that sounded like the French we learned at school, but they would not have been approved of to be speaking this French like in front of the nuns. So they would have spoken what they would call the proper French as compared to the Métis French.
So growing up, I had many cousins with which I would speak what I would call today Michif French. And we would do what I know today to be code switching. So when the teacher would come around, we would speak French-Canadian French, or at that time we would call it good French. And then we would switch when it was just us cousins, or if I was with like aunties and uncles who would be speaking Michif French, we would switch to Michif French, or at that time what we would call like country French, or sometimes we would even call it bad French, but I would never call it that today. I think that's a pejorative term. I didn't know growing up that it was a whole different language, but I knew that there was times where we had to speak like school French and times where we got to speak our language.
Quite often when I hear other people speaking Michif French, it was very interesting, because now when I hear these things, it just makes me smile, because I think, wow, it's just like a flashback to those days, It's a strange feeling to be out in public and still hear the Métis French, because you don't hear it so much anymore.
And being a Métis person comes with responsibilities. When we say I'm Métis, when we say, je suis Michif, we have a responsibility that comes with that, especially as younger folks, to reach out to those generations that have the experiences and the knowledge and connect with them. And so my way of doing that is through language, and I pursue that actively all the time. We all come into this world with gifts. That's what I was taught, and responsibilities related to those gifts, So for me, I'm a language teacher. I teach colonial French, and that's a very colonial act, and it's complicated to do that as an Indigenous person. However, my gift of understanding language and of having access to English and French gives me that responsibility.
It is a concern that it is slowly dying out. And I mean, there's many reasons for that. But it's nice to know that there are young people that are interested in keeping it going and alive. Now we're at a time where we don't have to be so where we shouldn't be ashamed of what we are. Many people may say or think that, oh, they're different or whatever, right? And there's always that connection with, because a long time ago we were called half-breeds. But I'm hearing more and more of people that are working hard to keep it going. So it's hopeful. It is a hopeful situation, I feel.
Just for young folks today, people again who are in their early 20s or their late teens that are wanting to reconnect and are feeling passionate about it and don't know where to start, you're doing it. You're doing a great job, and it's because of young people that the language will survive. So as long as we keep doing this active work like this, I'm very hopeful for Métis people for the future to have a good quality of life. And I think that's all our ancestors wanted.